Hey folks, this is Riker with a Diablo Immortal video and overview giving my thoughts and impressions of the alpha so far. Now back in December, we had another alpha run. It was a much shorter alpha. I gave my impressions and overview back then. In this video, we're gonna see what has changed. Namely, now we've had multiple weeks to play the alpha, there's endgame content added in now, so I figured I would now revisit, give my updated thoughts, and talk through the new systems. Now, real quick, if you don't want to watch the entire video, here is the too long didn't watch version. Diablo Immortal feels like Diablo 3.5 or 3.75. It feels like taking the base of Diablo 3, adapting it for mobile, and then building upon it. There's a lot more in Immortal than there is in Diablo 3. There's a lot more endgame. There's a lot more to do than there is in Diablo 3. There's a lot of stuff in Immortal that I wish were in Diablo 3. Overall, the game is very polished, it feels fluid, it feels good. I had a lot of fun playing for a number of weeks. I only started to get bored after easily over 100 hours of play, and we don't even have the entire game available to us yet. Put an asterisk there. There's little things here or there that will be improved upon. My biggest criticism with the game, or the thing that I dislike the most about the game, is its monetization system. Otherwise, it's a good game. So we'll now talk through all of these things, starting with the class that's new to this alpha, the Crusader. I love the Crusader. I don't know if it's just recency bias, but this is my favorite class. In particular, I like its steed charge power here. It's called Drawn Quarter, evidently based on the Diablo 3 Steed Charge Drawn Quarter rune. But what's great about this is that you can actually attack while you are on horseback without interrupting it. What is the tankiest class in the game, or what you would think is, because it's the heavy armor class, is actually the most mobile class in the game. That's a big reason why I do like it. Otherwise, the build that I've put together here is a build designed specifically for me and my inability to aim with my thumbs. I have a full AoE power around me. This sweep attack will sweep all around thanks to a modifier, a legendary item. I have this here, another AoE burst around me that moves with me, damaging everything near me, and I have my Hammerden, effectively, spinning around shields. The vault is under attack. Let's actually see if we can get there in time. This is one of the activities that I really enjoyed. The whole endgame system built up here is something that I hope Diablo 4 looks at, is something that I hope that, I mean, I could only wish would come to D3. I doubt that'll ever happen. The fact that Rax is still there, it's unlikely that we'll see any action going in here, but just in case, hopping in. In fact, you know what? Is that an actual enemy? It is. Got him. Got him. Vault is secure. All right. That was... Okay. Should we talk about this now or later? Man. Remember what just happened here. We defended the vault. We'll talk more about this later, but this is one of the endgame activities. This is the whole endgame system, the faction PvP that really interests me. The faction, and when I say PvP, I know a lot of people are there. Your eyes are going to glaze over. You're not interested in PvP. It doesn't have to be PvP. There's faction v faction stuff. You could never PvP and still partake. You can solely PvE and still partake in this faction versus faction stuff. So the class is currently available: Crusader, Barbarian, Demon Hunter, Monk, Wizard. Necromancer will be coming in at the very end. It'll be there for launch. Those are the 6 classes the game will launch with. I know when I first played Alpha back in December, it didn't seem like everything was all the classes were fully balanced. I can definitely say for PvP, the classes do not feel fully balanced, but we'll get back to PvP in a bit here. Talking more about the classes here. So, in many ways, Immortal is a bigger game than D3, or a deeper game. One way in which that is not the case is with skills. So in D3 you have roughly 30 skills to pick from, and every skill has 5 runes to pick from, plus you have passives and all that. We're getting ejected from the vault here. We're going to bring up our menu again. But here you have your skills, they level up. You can equip 5 skills total. We have 2 primary attacks to select from, and then a host of other skills. There's roughly 20, I believe, if we count them quickly. 1, 2, 13, 14 skills currently, but there might be some skills missing. In fact, I think it's confirmed that there are some skills missing because we can only go up to level 55 currently in this alpha. Full release, level 60 will be max level, so there will be a couple skills added. These skills level up, but we never pick runes. So in that way, it's a shallower skill system than D3. However, one thing that I realized is that they have transplanted the runes onto gear. Things that runes used to do in D3, now legendary items are substituting for that. So this legendary here, Guardian Inscription, your consecration now moves with you. You can imagine this being a rune on consecration in Diablo 3. Here, consecration radius increased 20%. Again, you can imagine that being a rune in D3. So if you shift your outlook and consider that, okay, the items that I wear are the runes, that's one way of making that comparison from D3 to Immortal. So again, D3 skill system, deeper than Immortals because you have the choice of the different runes. But now let's go into Paragon. The Paragon system in Immortal is deeper than Diablo 3's. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and more coming in the future. Paragon Trees. Paragon Trees. We go in here, we have the Vanquisher tree, where you can allocate your Paragon points every time you level up in Paragon. You can assign points into different things. They will do different things, different buffs. So your very first decision is whether you want to go into the Vanquisher tree or the Survivor tree. Survivor being more defensive, Vanquisher being more offensive. You eventually unlock certain passives within here that you can equip that will give you different kinds of buffs. And then as you get higher Paragon, you unlock additional Paragon trees. This one unlocks at Paragon level 50, 100, 150, and again, and so on and so on. One key distinction between Immortal and pretty much all other ARPGs. Immortal is being designed as a game that you will play forever. It's not going to be reset every 3 months. Your progress goes into the garbage. They're designing this to be a game where you can, for months and years, keep investing into your same character. That's why they need to keep adding Paragon trees and other content over time for you to keep farming up so that you don't reach a point where it's like, okay, I have everything. What do I do now? So overall, the idea of this Paragon tree, far superior to Diablo 3's Paragon system, or at least what it's devolved into. The one criticism that I have is that the idea sounds cooler than the implementation. So, the idea, Paragon trees, all these different things that I can choose, that sounds awesome. What is the actual experience? I'm Paragon level 25. So, I've made the decision, right off the bat, I made the cool decision of picking Vanquisher over Survivor. That was cool. I got to make a decision. We like to make decisions in RPGs. So, we pick this tree to build into. Again, right off the bat, I'm picking between potency or damage. I go for damage. And you need to build up 5 out of 5 before moving on to the next node. Or in case of the top branch here, Exorcism, you need to invest 10 points. And this is where the trouble comes in. So my path was my first 5 Paragon levels had to go into damage in order to unlock the next node. Then I got Zeal. Cool. This is a 1 out of 1. This is something that changes my build in a cool way. For each monster you defeat, your attack speed increases by 0.5% for 6 seconds, stacking up to 10 times. Awesome, I'm building towards this. I get it, it's nice to get. Now I want to keep going. I ultimately want to go for armor penetration, which translates into crit chance in this game. This is a really powerful thing that I want to build towards. So now I start taking this path, and now I have 25 Paragon levels where I am not making any more choices, and I'm just waiting. Every Paragon level, just a point into damage until I finally put 25. I have to max this out before I can move on to Wrath. So it's slower to level up Paragon in Immortal than it is in D3. Again, I'm Paragon level 25. I've been playing this for a few weeks now. So the Paragon is slow, which is nothing inherently wrong with that, but it's not exciting to know, okay, well now I have 25 Paragon levels where it's just the decisions made for me. All the fun happened in the first few Paragon levels, and then it's like, okay, well, more of the same now for 25 Paragon straight. So I'm hoping the system can still be in flux, maybe something could be toyed with here. I don't really know what can be done, but again, making decisions is fun. Skill trees, great idea. But estimating that I have dozens of hours of gameplay now where I'm no longer making a choice, less exciting. However, Paragon isn't the only game system, and I think a big part of Immortal is giving you multiple different game systems to invest into in order to bring that variety, that fun. Now let's go to quests here. So I guess we'll talk a bit about the campaign experience. Playing through the campaign is pretty fun, it's solid. Is it the most exciting campaign ever? I can't say it is. I wasn't paying an immense amount of attention to the story because I wanted to get through the content, but overall you have varied quests. You don't have boring quest objectives like go here, kill 10 monsters, go there, kill 5 monsters, go there, kill 10 monsters. There's a sequence of different events that go through. It all feels very organic. It doesn't feel terribly repetitive. You're progressing through different zones. Let's bring up our world map here. The story of Immortal. Again, I didn't pay super close attention, but I have a general understanding. The main villain of Diablo Immortal is not Diablo. Why? Diablo's dead. This takes place between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. At the end of Diablo 2, the World Stone was destroyed. The 3 primevals were defeated. They don't return, or at least Diablo does not return until Diablo 3. So they can't just make Diablo come back. Yes, the game is called Diablo, but they can't do it. Instead, they have an enemy called Michael Skarn, who looks Diablo-ish enough to be Diablo. He is the main demon that we're building towards fighting eventually. And again, the premise is the World Stone was destroyed, and now these shards of the World Stone are scattered throughout the world because of the big eruption at Mount Ariat. So these shards have gone all over the place, and there are bad actors, cultists trying to get it, cultists of Skarn, and trying to get it in order to basically wield the power of Diablo and do bad things like the bad people that they are. So we gotta stop them, being the good people that we are. Now, it does beg the question, well, we've never heard about Worldstone shards. Why in Diablo 3 do these not come up? We don't have the ending of the story. We only have up to level 55, so there's a couple zones still left. The Frozen Tundra, I believe, is the last zone that we go to. But I believe the last 5 levels will take us to Hell here, because we don't get to travel to Hell quite yet. But we visit all these other zones in the meantime, and my suspicion is that you'll get to kill Skarn at the end of all this, and they have opportunity to neatly tie up in a bow why Worldstone shards are no longer brought up in Diablo 3 and in the future. So for those who care about lore and continuity, that aspect of it, the actual campaign story of Immortal, feels like it fits very nicely into the lore, or it can at least. We'll see how the story ends. Can fit very nicely into, or in between, the stories of D2 and D3. We get to see a lot of familiar faces from Diablo 2, which is great. Akara, Cassia, and others. I won't go into spoilers. We even have at some point a flashback event. Again, no spoilers, but it's really cool. We get to revisit this moment in Diablo history that doesn't take place in any game. I thought it was a very cool moment, and it actually opens up the opportunity to do more of these sort of revisiting these memories in order to revisit past story plot moments in Diablo lore, as they want to keep maintaining Immortal. Will they do this? I don't know, but the opportunity is there, and I think it would be wise to seize that opportunity with future content updates to further explore these past instances of important moments in the world, the universe of Diablo. Overall, the difficulty, I would say, is more challenging than Diablo 3. There's, in particular, one boss relatively early on, I believe it's the Blood Rose, that can be quite a challenge for less experienced players. So there's maybe a little bit of tuning that needs to be done, but overall, the difficulty is, it's not super easy. That said, it's relatively easy to optimize your character once you understand that basically there's 2 stats that really define everything, which we'll get to. Your gear really matters. Power levels make a big difference. We'll get to that in a bit. But overall, the bosses are more challenging. The boss fights are more complex than in Diablo 3. In fact, the Frozen Tundra has a boss fight that I would almost equate to Path of Exile levels of complexity. It was a breath of fresh air. It was great to see. It's almost as though the deeper into the campaign you get, the more complex these boss fights become. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the final boss fight is going to be when we get to play through the rest of the campaign. Now, on the topic of the story and the lore, so again, everything in the campaign is cogent, it seems to fit in, or at least I can imagine a path where it will fit in. If you care about lore, then the whole immortal versus shadow thing might start to raise some questions. I don't know how they're going to address this, but if it is to be canon that shadows and immortals exist, which I suppose we need to delve into a bit more, then it raises a lot of questions like, why haven't the immortals helped defeat Diablo in the past? Why don't they help defeat Diablo in Diablo 3? I believe it's relatively difficult to reconcile the existence of shadows, or at least immortals. Shadows lurk in the shadows, but immortals are these glorified figures, the defenders of Sanctuary. What are they doing? Why haven't they been helping? If it's just meant to be something that is non-canon, it's just existing outside of the campaign, then it's fine. I don't feel we need to justify non-campaign things, but it does seem like the devs do intend for this shadow and immortal stuff to be part of the canon, so I wonder how they're going to reconcile that, because it certainly creates some plot holes. One of the endgame systems we have in Immortal is your Bestiary. So as you're going around the world, you're going to kill monsters, and they will randomly drop these orbs. Once you've collected 10 of these, then you can turn them in at the Heraldric altar in order to start filling your Bestiary. This is a catalog of pretty much all the monsters in the game, and you fill this up over time. This is a long tail progression system. You got the full physics, a little detail here, but it's a cute little detail. They got the full physics built in, and this also confers a mechanical bonus. So you can see I'm gaining life and damage. I've leveled up my Bestiary to level 23. Again, every 10, I forget what they're called, orbs that I collect, I can turn it in to start augmenting my Bestiary. So you're very slowly, very gradually getting increasingly powerful, while also building up this catalog of monsters. Gotta catch them all. This is something that incentivizes you to just sort of explore the world, go out, kill monsters, because you don't get these orbs when you're running dungeons. It's specifically when you're just exploring out in the overworld, which you could be doing while doing bounties. Now, if we go to our bounty board here, you can do 12 bounties per day. Bounties are so much less miserable to do than in Diablo 3. I hate doing bounties in Diablo 3. I don't know why I don't hate them in Immortal, but I think part of the reason is you are limited to 12 per day. They are rewarding to do. You want to do your 12 bounties every day. The rewards justify the time expense. I think the fact that you're limited to 12 is partially what makes it less miserable. In Diablo 3, I know that if I want to, I can do 8 hours of bounties. That the only thing stopping me is my own desire to stop. I stop when I decide I have enough materials. Whereas knowing that when I start doing bounties, you know, I'm occupied for half an hour, however long it takes. There's a fixed end to it. I can do my bounties, and then it's done. I got my good rewards, and then I can still keep going out in the world and doing things. Nothing in this game prevents you from just playing it, right? Dungeons you can run forever. We'll get to dungeons. Bounties are limited to 12 per day, but you can still just go explore around the world, kill things, run into random quests, which are also very rewarding. There's random world quests that you can do that also are very rewarding and incentivize you to just explore out in the open world. However, speaking about those open world quest events, part of the problem with that, currently at least, and this is an easy fix, is that there's a couple activities, a couple quests, open world quests, that spawn on a predictable timer. Now, one of them here, if we go to this zone here, spawns every half hour. Every half hour, we have this event begin, where a carriage spawns. It travels throughout the map. It's an escort quest. You escort this carriage. It starts all the way up here. You can actually see the carriage itself in Ashwold Manor. It follows this circuit all the way down to probably about here. And you have to be killing waves of enemies as you're escorting it. Then the final wave, the guy basically comes out of the carriage, you kill him, and it drops a good amount of reward. And the meta right now is to basically do this event every half hour. Then there's another event that spawns every hour, that spawns in Mount Zavane. You would zone in here. This is another kind of interesting quest. So these quests, again, some of them are very basic of, you know, just kill 60 enemies in this zone, but some of them are more inventive and creative. The one that I'm showing here, Mount Sylvain, basically this giant monster spawns that kind of looks like Diablo from Diablo 3, and it cannot be damaged unless you touch this altar. This holy aura emanates, and once the monster, it's almost like a world boss, enters this zone, then it becomes vulnerable. And this is generally something that you want to have a bunch of people to tackle. And you're going to first whittle down its shield. As it's walking around the map, you notice that there's actually a bunch of these altars. Well, I guess you can't see them here, but we follow the path, and there are several altars. We're going to come into view of another one soon. So you're whittling it down as it's walking until you finally drop its shield, and then you can take it out. You tend to see a lot of people come around to deal with this event. Again, that's once an hour, and pretty much every hour on the hour you want to do that. On top of that, you also can play on different difficulties. So right now, I'm in Hell 1. You have to be in town to change difficulty, so we're going to do that. So we're going back to Westmarch now to change our difficulty, but basically, every difficulty level is a separate instance, so you can do these events in each instance. The only thing preventing you from doing so would be, well, if other players have done it first. So this whole meta evolved of there being a specific order in which players will go through so that everyone can get the reward. But here we can change the difficulty from normal, Hell 1, Hell 2, up to Hell 3. So I dislike, or at least it got quite repetitive, to have to every 30 minutes go do these events. I would almost rather that they're more randomized so that we can't always predict. I've seen other suggestions be just limit how many times a day you can do these events, or you can get the reward for these events. Now, oftentimes now when I've spoken of reward, the reward that we're specifically chasing is a crafting material. Enchanted Dust. A huge amount of the endgame in Immortal right now is chasing Enchanted Dust because you use that to upgrade your gear. We'll get to upgrading gear in a bit. But right now, just bear in mind, Enchanted Dust is especially important to get. You get Enchanted Dust by doing bounties, you get Enchanted Dust by doing random world quests. So given there is you can either wander around the world and find those random world quests that randomly spawn at random times, or /end, every 30 minutes there are 2 quests that you know for sure always spawn, and they're always in that zone. So I think if those were also randomized, then it would encourage more general exploration of the world, which I think is good, because again, as you're randomly exploring the world, you're also gaining those, here they are, monster essence. That's what you use for your bestiary. So you're incentivized for exploring the world, you're finding these random world events. There's also random dungeons that spawn that are very rewarding. Those actually will give you gems, which are a deeper system than in D3. Very important to find. So when you come upon one of these random dungeons, you really want to do that random dungeon, because it's only there for a limited time. It'll despawn if you just sit in front of it. So overall, you're generally incentivized to explore around the world, but because these 2 particular events spawn at very predictable times and places, well, we're not going to bother going around randomly. It's just less efficient to do that. We do these events, and while doing these events, hope that you run into a randomly spawned quest and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So that is something that I believe the devs will change in some way. How they're going to address it, I don't know, but I do think it's something important to address, because we have, people on the max roll team, for instance, who are, Paragon level 150. I cannot imagine how many times they have run these quests over and over and over and over and over, every half hour. I've, only Paragon 25. I'm already fed up of doing it. But there are other things to do in Immortal, of course. And some of those are dungeons. So, there are currently, and there'll probably be more, we have the Mad King's Breach. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dungeons currently. Certainly at least 1 more, if not multiple more, by launch. Mad King's Breach. Each of these dungeons is unique. They're all different. They're a story moment in the campaign that is brought to life as a repeatable dungeon that you can run for reward. These tend to be quite rewarding to do in different ways, but dungeons are, for grinding XP, tend to be one of the best things that you could do. So we got the Skeleton King here, we got the Countess, the Tomb of Feiteira is quite an interesting fight. All these bosses are different mechanics, and you can run these an infinite number of times. You're never limited by how many times you can run them per day, and you always get reward. Dungeons, I would say, overall are well implemented. Could there be some balancing? Sure. Right now, I believe Mad King's Breach is the best one to run for XP, so if they can do something to tool that a bit, but that's nitpicks, that's easily resolvable. So we have bounties, we have dungeons, we have just running around the world, doing quests. What else can we do in Immortal? Well, there's also the open PvP zone in the Bilefen. Now, there's something called the Proving Grounds over here. On some timer, I don't know if it's once every 3 hours or something, a chest will spawn in the Proving Grounds. This is an open PvP zone. And a chest spawns, and players will then fight over this chest. At least that's the intent. In my experience, not too many people show up because they're all busy doing other things. You see, we just got some monster essence to drop there. We're going to pick that up before we keep moving on. Oh, XP globes. That's a thing. In Diablo 3, when you kill, an elite pack, they just give more XP. In this case, they actually drop XP globes. Okay, some event spawned here. Let's do it. We might as well. But basically, at that altar, for the PvP activity, that chest spawns, and it's not something that everyone could get as a reward. It's a very rewarding chest. It's guaranteed a legendary drop. I'm pretty certain. At least every time I've gotten it, I've gotten a legendary to drop. But while the intent is for people to fight over the reward, in practice, people end up just partying up. Now, you're max 4 to a party. So I do wonder, if more than 4 people had shown up, then would we get PvP? I'd imagine the answer to that is yes. But right now, I suppose it's the incentive or the reward for this activity isn't great enough to encourage people to stop doing their other activities, namely those 2 activities that spawn every half hour and every hour, in order to come for this, for what is not a guaranteed win. Those other activities, you're more guaranteed to get the reward. In this case, if everyone were to come, then only max 4 people would get the reward, whoever is in the party. Unless I'm very misunderstanding how this works. But in general, the Bilefen, we have this open PvP zone where you could PvP. Now, we're playing on a server with a limited number of players on it, so it just so happens we don't have a lot of players who are into this sort of open world PvP. But when we have a fully launched game and more players, I'm sure having that open world PvP will be a bigger thing that you can participate in if you so desire. Now, we also have as an endgame long-term progression system the Heliquary. Now, the Heliquary is something that you get this material called scoria. You get this by doing bounties. There's one other way to get scoria, but in general, you get scoria by doing bounties, and you then upgrade your Heliquary, and this just kind of gives you a buff. It's, in that sense, it's similar to the Bestiary in that it's something that just gradually, over a long period of time, builds up your power more and more and more and more. You're seeing here defense rating and offense rating. Those are the 2 most critical stats in the game. But you'll also notice that we have 2 bosses here. So in addition to just leveling up the Heliquary, we're also killing bosses to get trophies. So I have 2 trophies right now because I've killed 2 bosses. The first boss is just a gimme. But now... Oh, Nephilim Cache has been refreshed. In fact, okay, so we're here. Let's do it. We just so happen to be 5 minutes away now from this happening. So we'll be in the zone for it when it happens. I'm gonna go off to the side here just so that when I have when I'm in my menus I won't get, PK'd. But we'll see what happens. We'll see if someone else comes and parties with me. There is still monsters to defeat. There's a wave of monsters that spawns. So even if you're by yourself, you don't just get the chest for free. But going back to the Heliquary. So during PTR itself, this Countess boss, Vitath the Shivering Death, was added, I want to say roughly a few weeks into testing. So I believe the intent is roughly once a month to roll out a new Heliquary boss. So again, this is going to be a long-term progression system, and it takes quite an investment. Again, you have to do your daily bounties in order to get your scoria to upgrade your Heliquary. And then every time you defeat a boss, you gain one of these relics to put into your Heliquary, and you can have different relics equipped. You can have only one relic equipped, basically, in order to gain the special attribute. In this case, it's 10% attack speed for challenge drifts only. This one will give 10% crit chance for challenge drifts only. So different bosses will thus confer different bonuses, and you choose which one to equip. So it's nice that that's an extra little bit of customization over there. Now looking at some of the social features over here, we have warbands and clans. Clans and warbands are two different things. I haven't really explored warbands all that much, but a warband is basically meant to be something much smaller than a clan. It's mostly just, okay, if you have a bunch of friends that you play together with often, kind of, you know, form a warband. It's not some official clan with a clan tag. It's just a group of people that play together. And you can see here that you can apply to these different warbands. I guess you can say they're more like communities in D3. That's the closest analogy. Just meant to be smaller in scale. And then you have clans, which have some fixed number of members as well. Clans are going to be a bigger system, but overall operate largely similar to Diablo 3 clans. So as you can see here, another player came by and invited me to a party. So we're going to join that party. We are now fully 4 people here, so that we're not going to fight each other. But let's see if anyone else shows up and whether we're going to kill them or not. See, now we're a bully squad now. That's kind of, I guess what's going to happen. If a 5th person comes by, we will basically have to bully them away. Unless that 5th person can take us all on at the same time, which might be possible. We'll discuss that when we get to PvP, which will be another topic, but we're less than a minute away here from the fight, and it doesn't look like anyone else is going to come to contest us. We'll explore around a bit, but just somehow always luck into having the precise number of players to get this. By the way, I've been playing on a tablet. Maybe I can talk a bit about that experience. So the first time I played back in, well, not at BlizzCon, but first time I played in the alpha in December, I was playing on my phone. My phone is a relatively small phone compared to other phones, and the screen was a little small. I thought it was a little difficult to parse some things, but on a tablet, I have a Samsung Galaxy Tab S7. It's just the right size for me. Alright, here we go. This is spawning. So, monster spawn. There is, in fact, no other players that have spawned. So, yep, the experience remains as I described to you folks. We open the chest, and what legendary are we going to get? Let's find out. There we go. Shoulders. And a bunch of enchanted dust as well. That's that material that we need, of course. So, again, when there are more people playing the game, probably, this will end up having to be contested. We'll get to items here in a little bit, but we were talking about the feel of the gameplay and the controls. So, again, I've been a PC gamer all my life. I am mouse and keyboard all the way. The only real console I owned before that was a Super Nintendo. So, for me, controlling with my thumbs is a very new experience. At this point, I actually prefer to use a touchscreen to a controller. I've never really been acclimated to controllers. I find the touchscreen is actually a smoother experience. You don't get that same tactile feedback like on a controller, so you can lose the position of your thumb when you need to push your skill buttons. That is true. But my thumbs just glide effortlessly across the screen. Another advantage of a tablet over a phone, it seems the tablet heats up less. The phone, depending on your model of phone, can heat up quite a bit, to the point of being quite unpleasant to the thumbs, is what a number of people have reported. But again, for me, I have my tablet. I have it on a tablet stand. I can, here, hold this up. I got a bunch of other wires and cables connected to make this pipe through to you folks, but playing on the tablet is just right. It's the Goldilocks zone for me. A lot of people I see come by my stream and say, hey, this looks too zoomed in. I can understand when you're watching it on a big, beautiful 27-inch monitor that, yeah, looks too zoomed in on your mobile device. I've never felt that I'm too zoomed in. Yes, when I'm on my horse, I cannot see far enough ahead of me to navigate properly, to react in time to what I'm seeing, but I navigate via the minimap. When I'm moving around, when I'm killing monsters, I'm looking at the screen. When I'm moving, when I'm navigating, I'm looking at the minimap. I don't know if that's what the devs intend, but the size of the character, how zoomed in you are, it's never been an issue for me. I understand it might also be a limitation of playing on a mobile device, that you want to be more zoomed in so you have less monsters on screen to save on poly count. Again, overall, outside of some frustration of being unable to aim properly because I'm not accustomed to aiming with my fingers, with my thumbs, it's been very smooth, but I've selected this build specifically to deal with my handicap of being unable to aim. So, to me, playing with this build is just perfect. It's just right. Yeah, sometimes when I'm navigating, maybe I'll get stuck on something because I can't aim very well, but overall, very smooth. And to answer the question I get asked 860,000 times per stream, controller support. Officially, no controller support. Officially, the devs are looking into controller support. It's unlikely to launch with controller support. Can you make it work? Allegedly, some people have made it work. There are some workarounds to getting the game to run on a controller. It might be a bit janky, it might be a little bit difficult to set up, but it is possible. The other question I get asked is, can you play this on BlueStacks or on an emulator? Probably. The game is designed to be played on mobile. The best experience will be on mobile with a touchscreen, but if you are really determined to play it on emulator, you most likely will be able to do so if you're willing to put up with whatever janky workarounds you need to do. Alright, what should we talk about next? Maybe let's talk about the itemization a bit? Yeah, alright, so itemization. Is this deeper or shallower, or just as deep as Diablo 3? That's a little tough to say. I would say in some ways it's certainly shallower. So, your itemization, you have 6 primary item slots: helm, torso, shoulders, pants, main hand, offhand. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My camera's hiding the boots, but you have amulet, ring 1, ring 2, gloves, belt, and boot slot. Those are your itemization slots, plus a charm. We'll get to that, plus a charm. Now, what makes this shallower is that in Diablo 3, you can pick whether, if you want to be a wizard wielding a bow, you can do that. In Immortal, you are pretty much set into wielding the weapons that are determined for you. As a barbarian, you don't get to choose between wielding a two-handed weapon or 2 one-handers. You have to do 2 one-handers. And there's no functional difference between gear, it is just different art. So, as a Crusader, I always have a one-hander and a shield. That's my only choice. Some of the one-handers will be flails, some will be hammers. There's no functional difference between these, it is just a difference in art. And I've noticed that on the legendary items, it tends to be that flails are more associated with one set of skills, hammers are more associated with a different set of skills, but that's the only real difference. So, in that sense, shallower itemization choices than in Diablo 3. But the one way in which you can argue it's deeper than D3 is the legendary items. So, again, legendary items are your runes. In Diablo 3, a lot of legendary items are, this deals 500% more damage, we have insane damage multipliers, we have sets. There are no sets in Diablo Immortal, there are no plans to add sets to Diablo Immortal, so we're right away avoiding this ridiculous number bloat of 5,000% more damage, 10,000% more damage, 500% more damage. Items, numbers are much more reasonable. Consecration radius increased by 20%. Drawn Quarter now damages enemies when you run them over, so the runes, or the legendary powers, will vary between either being a small numerical buff in some way, or it will alter the way the skill behaves. So in this sense, you are more customizing your character because you can be effectively selecting multiple runes for the same skill. So, Drawn Quarter, or, Steed Charge in Diablo 3, you can only pick 1 rune for it. When in Immortal, you can pick multiple items that'll modify Drawn Quarter in multiple ways. So again, to go through, here starting with the bottom, Spiraling Shield. So typically, Spinning Shield operates one way. It's more like the Captain America shield in Diablo 3. You just throw it out and it spins around in place. This modifies it into a spiral around you into that classic Hammered In. Long Palm here, Sweep Attack typically only attacks in a cone. With this legendary, it now strikes in a full circle around you. My pants here, we explained already, it turns Drawn Quarter into something that typically the default of Drawn Quarter is like the Drawn Quarter rune on Steed Charge in D3, where it pulls enemies with you. With this, it instead knocks them back and damages them. Good for PvP, not as good for everything else. Now here we have Drawn Quarter duration increased by 30%. And then here again, Consecration radius increased, and this makes Consecration now move with you. Typically you cast it in a place and it stays there. So in that regard, I feel you have more choice or more customization in building the kind of character that you want by effectively being able to select multiple runes for skills and deciding again on your gear. It's not just, okay, I pick a skill and then I get all the items that give me 500% damage to that skill. You are picking things that will modify the skill in a different way, and your Crusader will be, but probably different from my Crusader, will pick different things. Maybe you don't care about Steed Charge duration, you'd rather have something else. There's one rune on Steed Charge, or sorry, one legendary item that makes Steed Charge leave a flaming trail, which is good for PvP, for instance. Maybe you'll want to get that instead. So the difference between these primary items and secondary items is that primary items can be legendary, secondary items cannot be legendary, they just roll with attributes. The other key difference is that primary items can hold legendary gems, and there are 1,000,001 legendary gems in Immortal. You can equip 6 of them on your character, and you put regular gems in your secondary gear. So let's talk about the secondary gems a bit first. Secondary gems. You can have up to 3 sockets in a secondary item. These sockets will have different colors, and only a certain type of gem can go into a certain color socket. So I believe for every color socket, there are 2 different types of gems that can go in there. So for the blue socket, you can either go with an aquamarine, which gives you armor, or you can go with a sapphire, which gives you armor penetration. Armor penetration being crit chance in this game. So you're getting to make those choices. Again, what gems do I want to pick to put into my secondary gear? Rubies give life. Tourmaline gives damage. I believe Tourmaline is the red socket. So for the red socket, it's either a Tourmaline or a Ruby, so you're picking between damage or life. Then the yellow socket, you have a Topaz for resistance, or you can go with a Citrine for potency. So you have some variety there, right? It's not just main stat, main stat, main stat, as it would be in Diablo 3, or alternatively, it's either going for main stat or you're going for toughness, right? The regular gems in D3 are pretty straightforward. This is a deeper system. Is it super deep? It's definitely not super deep. Is it deeper than D3's? Yes. Leveling up your regular gems is a more arduous process in D3. It's going to take longer, as you can see here. These gems are higher rank than, say, I guess, this chipped gem over here. And it's all built into a system again. Long tail progression, you're gradually leveling up your things. Then as for legendary gems, again, we have so many different legendary gems. I have a bunch of them here, and I have some of them equipped into me. So the numbers overall are much lower than in Diablo 3's legendary gems. Now the first thing is every legendary gem makes you gain some percentage of the socketed item's base attribute. This can vary depending on the gem, so that can also alter or weigh into your choice. This only gives me 25%, this one gives me 40%, 30%, 25, 20, and that's on top of the actual legendary effect of the gem. Again, there's a wide breadth of them. We're not going to go through all of them here, but there's a whole lot of different gems, and there needs to be, because you can equip 6 of them. Some of these gems are very much like, oh, this is really useful to my build, I'm picking this. On my current build, I don't have every legendary gem available to me, but I have some that are like, oh yes, this is really good for my build. Others I've picked more because gain 40%. It gives me a good percentage of the socketed item's base attribute. And depending on what that attribute is, that might alter where you want to put the gem. So the head here, the base attribute is damage. For the pants, the base attribute is life. So do I want more damage or more life? That'll affect where I put that legendary gem. Legendary gems are quite involved to level up. They don't have, 150 ranks like in Diablo 3. They have fewer ranks, and it takes more to level them up. It's relatively easy to level them up once, you just have to find a duplicate, and then boom, it's leveled up. But then with every increasing step, you gotta get more and more and more. So it's gonna take longer to level up your gems. And then the last itemization slot is the charm. This is the longest tail itemization system, holy crap, to the point that it's kind of non-interesting. So, when a charm drops, it'll have at least one, possibly more, skill bonuses on it. Awesome. However, that is not going to be smart loot. It's going to be randomized. So, at launch, there's a 1 in 6 chance that a charm drops with a stat that is useful to you. Now, you can upgrade charms up to rank 5. Every time you upgrade a charm, it adds another skill bonus. Is that skill bonus for your class? Of course not. It's randomized. So again, 1 in 6 chance, 1 in 6 chance, 1 in 6 chance. The odds of getting a useful charm are so small that this is really a system. It's a long-term system because it's just going to take so ridiculously long to get a useful charm that it's almost not even worth really focusing on. You just sort of like, when I get it, right? I lucked into getting one that has sweep attack rank +1 on it. Awesome. I was so happy to get that. I upgraded it to rank 5. Monk, wizard, barbarian, demon. Could not even get a second crusader power on it. Womp womp. But this is a super long-term system. There's a little bit more to the charm system as well, but I can't even get a useful charm yet, so. Now if we look in this part of my inventory here, you'll see I have a bunch of other items. Some of these are runes. Now these runes are used to craft legendary gems. Different legendary gems will require different runes. So it's kind of cool to collect these different gems, and then depending on what you get, you can craft different runes. You might be trying to craft a specific legendary gem in order to complete your build, right? You need this gem for your build, so you're hoping to get the right runes for that. Sometimes you just want legendary gems to use as fodder to level up your other gems, in which case it's kind of random, like, okay, whatever gem I can craft, I will craft with the rune. And this ties a little bit into our trade system in the game. So if we go back to Westmarch here, the things that you can trade with other players in the marketplace in Immortal: runes, gems, legendary gems. We're gonna go check that out exactly. Right now we don't have an active trade scene, given the number of players that we have, but presumably when we have a higher population of players, we will have enough to sustain some kind of market where you can buy and sell and otherwise trade for different materials. So we have, again, gems, regular gems you can buy and sell, runes, legendary gems, and then skill stones. That ties into the charm system. We don't even have any listed there yet. Now you'll notice we have this over here, a barrier stone, a reforge stone. If you're familiar with reforging in D3, it's basically re-rolling a property at the Mystic. That's what this is. So what kind of properties are we rolling and re-rolling? Well, let's look at our gear. Let's look at the attributes. In general, attributes on gear in Immortal are less interesting than in D3, particularly because your main attributes are the most important. So, strength, vitality, strength, fortitude, strength, willpower, just willpower here. Those are the attributes that are the most significant. Why? Well, let's take a look. It all comes down to offense rating and defense rating. This is something that I'm not particularly fond of, but so much of your character power is tied to these two simple numbers. So, your gear contributes to giving you an offense rating and a defense rating. This is compared against enemies around you. And depending on how much higher or lower your magic number is relative to the monsters, that'll increase or decrease the amount of damage that you deal. Now, thankfully, against players, this is heavily reduced. The effects of offense and defense rating are heavily reduced against other players. But for PvP, offense and defense rating is king. It is everything. To the point that if you don't meet what feels like some arbitrary number, you are basically going to do no damage to an enemy, and you have no chance. So you, in particular, most players will especially feel this in the fight against the first reliquary or heliquary boss, La Salle. Every time I went there, I tried to fight him. I was ready, but my Magic number wasn't yet there. And there's no way for me to know either. It doesn't tell you what number I need to reach, so I just keep going. I upgrade my gear a bit. I come back and I enter the zone, and it gives you a warning. It tells you, warning, your power level or whatever is substantially low, is not high enough, so all of your damage is reduced by 90%, and you take 90% more damage, or something ridiculous, to the point that you stand virtually no chance. Virtually no chance. I would rather that I succeed or fail based off of my own merit, rather than I'm not tall enough for the ride. I want to let me on the ride. If I die because I'm too short and I fall out of the ride, make that my own fault. I would rather that's a more enjoyable experience than just literally a gear check number that tells you you're not meeting my arbitrary number, therefore I am artificially making you weaker. Because I don't even get to experience my actual power against him. It's just because, well, I've not reached this number, therefore it's not even going to let me try. I would like to at least be able to try without getting some massive nerf because my number doesn't meet that arbitrary number. To me, that doesn't feel good. Is it possible this system is implemented in order to ensure balance? It's very possible. I know other games use this. I'm not really familiar with games that use this kind of system, this offense power, defense power system. It is entirely possible that it is in the best interest of the game that this exists, but it takes what I at first thought was an interesting itemization system and heavily simplifies it to, well, just get as much main attribute as you can. Main attribute is king because it increases your offense and defense rating. So you really, you see here I have only one attribute. As much as possible, you want to get the biggest attribute numbers. It doesn't matter what anything else on the gear, right? I mean, apart from legendary power, you're just chasing whatever gives you the highest attribute numbers. So in this case, I got a triple attribute, triple socket item. This is like GG endgame, right? So for your secondary gear, you want triple socket, triple attribute. That's the best that you can get. Before that though, triple attribute, more attributes, always, always, always. There's never a debate. There's never a circumstance where you're gonna go for something else. That is just what's best. And because there's such an obvious and seemingly immovable path for where you have to go, it makes it a lot less interesting when it just takes what at first seems like a more complex and interesting system and just boils it down to chasing one very specific thing. Now that said, once you've gotten to a point where you get all your triple stats, right, then you start caring more about the secondary systems, but that means as you're leveling up, right, that means this is a system that from levels 1 to 55 or 1 to 60 when it launches, the only thing you care about is main attribute. Your upgrades don't matter, or rather the magic thing here doesn't matter. All you're caring about, right? The distinction, in fact, between whether you get strength or vitality or fortitude or willpower, nothing matters. You're just going for the biggest numbers. So it's taking away all choice when it's just saying the best answer is the highest, whatever gives you the highest number. So this is going to be the case from levels 1 till all the time, up to you leveling up. Because I didn't realize this at first. So while I was leveling up, I was like trying to make gear choices based on, well, I don't really care about willpower, let me get more strength, this, and that. I thought I was making meaningful choices, and then some of the encounters I was fighting were a struggle for me, and I noticed like, okay, the game is giving me an up arrow on this piece of gear, it's telling me this piece of gear is an upgrade, but like, it's giving me something that I don't want. I don't want more, willpower. I want more fortitude. But the reason the game is showing me an up arrow is because the overall number just goes up. It just increases my attack defense rating, which is like the least interesting potential outcome, to have like all these like interesting stats and attributes, but it boils down to none of it matters until you're like super endgame. You gotta get not just to max level. I am max level, and I'm still sort of reliant on, I haven't found, pants with 2 attributes. Once you finally get to a point where you have all of your maxed out attributes, then it starts to become a game about, okay, well, now that I have a triple attribute thing, now I can compare, okay, do I want, strength, willpower, vitality, or do I want strength, fortitude, vitality? Now, finally, after, 50, 75 hours of play, I'm finally starting to make some interesting decisions with my itemization, which I think is unfortunate. I would like for decisions to matter a bit more throughout that process. Now, The other factor here is you're seeing rank 5, rank 5, rank 9, rank 6. You level up your gear, basically. Your gear starts at rank 1 and you level it up. The cool thing is that when you get a new piece of gear, you can transfer rank. So I have a rank 9 helm, or here, let's try to identify these shoulders and see if we can get an upgrade. But basically, when you find an item, it starts off at rank 1, so you might feel like, oh man, I gotta invest all these resources into leveling it up again. You actually don't, you can just transfer it over, which is nice. So in this case, this is not an upgrade, because why? 30 and 35 on the left, 29, 31 on the right. The sum of those numbers is less, therefore this is not an upgrade, therefore I don't equip it. That's the choice that I have made. How fun. Now, every time you rank up an item, you gain what you see under the upgrades here. So more main stat. So it is immensely important, super important to always rank up your gear in order to gain those primary attributes because they add up to your magic number. And then your secondary attributes here pretty much don't matter, right? Damage to full life enemies increased by 15%. Damage taken while control impair reduced 12%. Damage taken reduced 3%. And you can see bonus here. Beneficial effect duration increased 3%. So this with a little lightning arrow next to it, this is something that you can reforge. That's where these reforged stones come into play. Now, unfortunately, something that you can roll with a reforged stone is main stat. So, what do you think is more useful? This 19 to fortitude or this 17 to intelligence? Well, in this case, bad example. What do you think is more useful? 17% intelligence or beneficial effect duration increased 3%? Well, right now the meta, which maybe we're wrong about the meta, but right now our understanding of the meta is you would take this plus 17 intel because it's a stat, a main stat that's going to add to your attack defense number. So, upgrading your gear, super important thing to chase in order to keep increasing your numbers. To clarify, this bonus unlocks at rank 6. So each of these items has a bonus stat that I unlocked at rank 6, and every few ranks on legendary gear you unlock an extra bonus effect. I should have clarified with that. So that's why I have rank 66666, because at 6 is when you get your first bonus, and then you get your second bonus, I think it's rank 11 or 12 or something. Then again at 18. So the general meta, again, is to chase these bonuses, and you do all that upgrading your gear by getting enchanted dust, which is why you want to do your every half hour the quest activities that give you this enchanted dust, because this fuels your power. Okay, I think we've covered itemization now. So again, in some ways, the itemization system is more interesting than D3's, in some ways it is less interesting. Overall though, there's more to do with itemization than in D3. Alright, we'll talk more about other activities that we can do, because we haven't finished covering all the different activities that you can do in this game. There's so much more to do in Immortal than in Diablo 3. So again, bounties, open world stuff, dungeons, there's also the Challenge Rift. Challenge Rifts operate differently than in D3. They go up in level. Challenge Rifts are a bit more like Greater Rifts in that they keep increasing in level, and eventually you'll reach a point where you can't you can't progress any further until you level up your gear, probably because you've not reached a magic number on your gear. In general, the stopgap for me to progress in Immortal has always been the gear check, which again doesn't feel great to me. I would rather it be that instead of artificially nerfing me because my numbers don't reach a certain point, I would rather just have a fair shot and fail because of my own skill not being up to par, or because of my own, my gear just not being powerful enough on its own without getting some nerf because of the arbitrary number. Again, though, I don't know. Maybe this is important for the game balancing. I'm not experienced with such a system. All I know is it doesn't feel good coming from what I'm accustomed to. Challenge Rifts can be done with a party. You get different rewards for unlocking different levels. You get a reward every day for doing a Challenge Rift. And there's Challenge Rift leaderboards as well to get additional reward. Then outside of Challenge Rifts, there are Elder Rifts. Elder Rifts you can run infinitely. Elder Rifts, your primary motivation for doing Elder Rifts is to get legendary gems. Now this is going to start to tie in a bit to our monetization system. So Elder Rifts here. You can input crests into Elder Rifts, either rare crests or legendary crests. Rare crests are smaller, easier to get. Legendary crests are more significant, harder to get. These add modifiers. Modifiers can make the rift more challenging. It can make it easier. It's just going to modify either yourself, the monsters, or the environment in some way. More crests means more modifiers. This is a great system. It's borrowed from, you know, every ARPG does this now. I'm very glad that Immortal does it. I'm, again, sad that D3 doesn't get it. But adding these also increases the reward. If you use a legendary crest, you are guaranteed to get a legendary gem. Now, without crests, with no crests whatsoever, and you get at least one free rare crest per day. Your rewards are basically gold, XP, and mystery items. With a crest, we add on some Fading Ember, and we add on some runes. So that's just some material, but the runes here, right? The runes are used for your legendary gems. Then if instead we add a legendary crest, you are guaranteed a legendary gem, plus runes and the Fading Ember. So you can run these infinitely. You are limited by nothing, but your main incentive for doing these is if you don't have rare crests, if you don't have any kind of crest, you probably don't want to be running these, so you can, you're better served doing other activities, but you can. You're free to run infinite numbers of rifts. Then we got the crest merchant right by it over here, and you can see that for eternal orbs, you can purchase rare crests and legendary crests. The best thing to buy is legendary crests. I would not bother with buying rare crests. And this ties into our monetization system, but we'll finish this talk with that. We'll first cover, I think the last thing there is to cover is the faction PvP activities. Actually, well, I guess this sort of ties into it. The battlegrounds. Let's talk about the battlegrounds. Okay. So, the organized PvP that anyone could participate in. During the alpha, it's only available during certain times of the day, an hour every day, in order to encourage people to actually play it, because you need some critical mass of players in order for this to work. If there are not enough people queuing up, then you never get a game going. So you queue up for a battleground, and hopefully other people are queued up as well. I believe it is 8v8, and it's really cool in concept. I loved the idea, and I loved my first few battleground matches. So there's an attack team and there's a defense team. There are multiple objectives for the defense team, for the attack team rather, to get through in order to ultimately destroy the enemy's base. It's a little bit Heroes of the Storm, a little bit League of Legends, kind of MOBA, and it's a mixture of a MOBA and Overwatch. Overwatch has attack defend, for instance, and but the point of view is obviously more reminiscent of a MOBA, but it's this really cool organized PvP for those who are into that kind of thing, and I am into organized PvP. I am not into disorganized open world PvP. Whatever dueling, I don't care, but give me organized PvP games. I like that. I liked Overwatch. I liked Heroes of the Storm. I like going in with a team, chasing objectives, fighting another team, and I think the concept of it is implemented very well. There are some hiccups that emerged, but again, my first experience, when this was new, when we were all not super high level, when the power differential between players was less, it was great. I loved it whether I won or lost. I had a great time. But then what happened? Weeks went by, the rich got richer, right? The top players grinding Paragon 150 plus became, at least it feels like they became a lot more powerful. Maybe it's perception bias, but after a few weeks, when I returned to PvP here, I die like that. In my first couple matches, time to kill felt like it was on the order of seconds. You know, like maybe a few seconds to kill someone, a few seconds to die. That was enough time to feel like you were doing something substantial in a fight, to feel like you had a chance to retreat, feel like you had a chance to chase down the enemy. Vault under attack. Have we done that before? I think we showed that at the start of this video, yeah. And I guess you'll see time to kill here in the vault as well. Probably gonna be pretty small. So, as the power differential increased, or for whatever reason, it just started to feel like, oh, well now Well, now, time to kill is like half a second. I just die in half a second. That was problematic. When time to kill is too short, then there we go. Okay, speaking of, yeah, like, did that player have a good experience right now? I don't think so. I don't think the person I just killed had a good experience. I came in and obliterated them before they even had a chance to react. Is that fun? You can say it's fun for me to feel like a big tough guy, you know, beating on some noob, but like, it's not satisfying. We didn't get to have any repartee, we didn't get to have any back and forth. So, this is something that can be fixed. I believe this can be fixed, right? I think something needs to be done to better equalize power levels, which becomes tough, right? How do you make the players who have all the best gear and super high Paragon, how do you make them still feel powerful while also ensuring fairness in PvP? It is such a difficult balancing game to play. I don't envy the devs. Right now, I don't feel it's balanced, and what happens when this is the experience? Did this person who died in half a second, did he have a good experience? Is he going to want to play this again? Or is he going to be like, oh, forget it. As soon as, you know, next time I raid the vault and I alert immortals, am I just going to leave before I even do PvP? When PvP becomes a stomp and there's no form of matchmaking, right? Maybe MMR is the solution, some kind of matchmaking rating to ensure more fairness. There is some matchmaking happening right now in that at least level 55s are matched together and sub-level 55s are matched together. At least that's happening. If we can add another layer of MMR, hopefully this can be the solution. Of course, though, you need some critical mass of players. You need enough people playing PvP in order to ensure that you're not waiting forever to get a match and ensure that you're getting a balanced game. If people's experience is, I die in half a second, then that's going to have fewer people playing PvP, and the PvP scene will ultimately die, because then the people that do want to play PvP are just never going to end up queuing with people. PvP in general in ARPGs has not been big outside of like the Diablo 2 scene from a million years ago. PvP scenes have tended to die in ARPGs because it can't build up that critical mass of players. Immortal, I really want PvP in Immortal to succeed. I want to play PvP Battlegrounds every day in Immortal. I can see this being something that I will really enjoy playing. I played Heroes of the Storm every day for a year. I like this kind of PvP, but it needs to be balanced. Anytime I would propose an idea of some kind of organized PvP in an ARPG, I propose an idea that I know a lot of people don't like, but it's that basically you're going in with a character that is a fresh character, that everyone is equal, and you like level up as you're playing, more similar to a MOBA game. I would be happy with that, but I understand that in the RPG crowd, right, you're investing all this time on your character. If you can't play with your character, why are you even playing PvP? I get that. So I'm not going to advocate for that, I'm not going to push for that, but we need some way to better balance these matches, or the scene will die. It will die if everything is just people either getting obliterated one way or the other. So, Battlegrounds, you can run as much as you want every day. I'm going to do it just for fun, right? You get some reward, but I would play it just for fun. That's how much I liked Battlegrounds the first few times when, again, time to kill was longer. But what else can you do? Alright, let's look again at our codex just to ensure we haven't forgotten everything. So, defend the vault, bestiary, bounties, we talked about Elder Rifts, yes. Okay, so now comes the factional stuff. In Diablo Immortal, you can be either an adventurer, or you can get recruited into either the Shadows or the Immortals. Now, as an adventurer, you don't have extra stuff to do. As a Shadow and as an Immortal, you have extra activities that you can partake in. In my experience, it's far more fun to be a Shadow. You have more things to do. But think of it as King of the Hill, but on a factional level. So, ultimately, very few players will end up having the opportunity to become Immortals. Immortals are the kings of the hill. They're a limited number of people, and their objective is to remain king, and the Shadows, there are different Shadow factions, their objective is to dethrone. So they're all trying to dethrone the Immortals and become the new Immortals. And this happens on a cycle. I don't know if a cycle, I think right now a cycle lasts 1 week, where every week there's an opportunity to dethrone the Immortals. It's possible that they might extend that just for alpha, that it's that short. But as Immortals, you have daily goals that you can do. Some of these daily goals are very easy to do. Some of them you do by just doing other activities. Overall daily goals, it's just, it's basically more bounties, right? It's more things to do on your checklist to gain reward every day. Contribute dominance. This is contributing towards your faction. So as you do your objectives, you help build up your faction's prestige. This gives more power and bonuses to the Immortals. It opens up more options. So for instance, status. Right now we are bolstering the vault. So if we come back to over here, strategy. We have our vault at rank 5, our Eternal Crown is rank 6. Essentia, this is what's in our vault. That's what people are trying to steal. When I was going into the vault to kill those other players, they were trying to steal Essentia from us. So on some regular basis, there's a number of items that you can distribute or otherwise gain. Being an Immortal, right, you're gaining some kind of reward. And the leadership of the Immortals, there's one leader and there's a number of 4 or 5 lieutenants that run the Immortals. They have, there's the Immortal Crown itself. The Immortal leader has this item that emits this aura that will benefit people around him. As you can see here, right, attack speed, cooldown reduction is what the Immortal Crown does at rank 2. Cooldown of 30 minutes. And then the lieutenants, they have different things. Crit chance, move speed, right? They're little buffs, but they're there. There's something. As an Immortal, you can see you have this glowing shield around you. And I think I have that other thing because I might be a lieutenant right now. So good. I don't deserve it, but the good guy leadership, Rax, and all the other guys decided to cycle people through, so we each get a chance to experience exactly what all these systems are and what they do. But I would say that the thrust of being an Immortal is much more focused on being an organized group of people. I'd equate this very much to being in a like a World of Warcraft clan or guild or whatever they call them in WoW, where you have these regimented activities, organized activities. One of them is actually called Kion's Ordeal. This is a raid. It's a 48-player raid. I thought it would be a little more. I was a little bit disappointed by this, to be honest. It's basically, I thought it'd be more involved. Let me talk through it. So you get up to 48 people together, and you got to take on, I believe it's 4 bosses, 4 mega bosses, in 4 parties of 12, max 12. You, in theory, could take them on with fewer people if you feel you can handle it. So I love the idea of having this raid. I love the idea of, you organize 40 people together at the same time to go fight these bosses, and you have a limited number of time, to do everything. My only disappointment with this is that it's literally just a boss fight. I don't know, I guess I expected it to be something more like a full-on raid like in World of Warcraft, where you're kind of like fighting through a level before, completing different objectives before getting the boss at the end, where it's really just like, okay, straight into the boss fight. There's a room with a boss in it, you fight the boss. So that part was a little disappointing, but overall I like the idea of Kion's Ordeal. I would encourage them to maybe, if they can do something, maybe they want to keep the time short. In general, a lot of these activities, the individual activities in this game are relatively short, can be completed in just a couple of minutes. So that might be more for the encouraging the instance-based gameplay that you might want on a mobile game, but I think if they can do something, like even the dungeons, right? Like, if it could be more like a dungeon, right? So imagine for Kion's Ordeal, like, it's the same duration as a dungeon with a boss at the end. That, I think, would add a little extra oomph. It's kind of what I expected when I heard, oh, it's a 48-player raid. But I don't know, that's just an idea. So the Rite of Exile, this is the thing that happens once at the end of the cycle to defend our right to remain Immortals. You basically, the clan leader, the Immortal leader, picks the best Immortals to fight against, or, I mean, he can pick whoever he wants, he can pick the worst. Picks some number of Immortals to fight off against the Shadows who have proven themselves most worthy of trying to fight for the crown, and then Immortals are either dethroned or remain throned. And yeah, so defend the vault, you've seen. This is contingent though on the enemies doing something. On shadows raiding the vault, you get an alert, and then you gotta go in and defend the vault. So I like this activity overall. I like the idea of it. But it is something passive. It is something that is, it's reactionary rather. It's not passive, it's reactionary. I can't decide to go do this. I have to wait. So gain dominance is an activity. It's not really an activity. I gain dominance by doing my daily goals. Defend the vault is a reactionary activity. Kion's Ordeal is like once a week and reliant on the clan leader organizing it. Battleground will eventually be infinite, and Rite of Exile is once a week. So these are more activities to do than just an adventurer, but shadows, and I wish I can show you the shadow stuff, have so much more to do. I had more fun being a shadow than being an immortal, but again, I think the fun in being an immortal comes with being in an organized group. I've not really been playing an immortal as part of an organized group, but if you treat it like a clan, and you guys will like, you know, plan to do different activities on different times, plan to do your Kion's Ordeal and all that, I can see being an immortal being more rewarding. Also, when there are more when there are more players, and there's going to be a lot more raids on the vault, because we got so lucky that we had, what, 2-3 of these while I was recording? I would spend hours waiting for someone to raid the vault. It's contingent on, you know, players doing it. So again, critical mass of players needed in order to make this something where you have enough opportunity to do this activity. Overall though, I do like this, you know, immortal system. So this is our Hall of Ascension. This is where immortals live. If we go outside, there's a statue of our leader, the King of the Immortals, out in town. Very cool. As immortals, you gain access to different rewards. Now, the way things are balanced right now, as an adventurer, the one thing especially you get as an adventurer, someone who's not a shadow or an immortal, is that you can purchase scoria. No one else can purchase scoria other than adventurers, and scoria is used to upgrade your Heliquary. So the meta right now is you leave your faction, become an adventurer, purchase scoria, reapply, get reinvited back into the immortals or the shadows or whatever. This is something that they will resolve, right? The devs will fix this. They have to, because this is not intended gameplay, right? It's not intended that we're leaving and rejoining, leaving and rejoining, right? Right now, the cooldown on rejoining is too short. If they put it to like a week or something, people can't screw around like this anymore. But they wanted to give some incentive for remaining an adventurer for people who just want to do that, and that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, so shadows get so many more activities. Shadows can raid the vault, right? So it is an active system. They, however, cannot raid the vault infinitely. Once a day, or yeah, every day they get something called a contract, which is like a super elaborate bounty. They're quite cool, they're more extended, they're more multi-step, they're more narrative focused, and when you complete a contract, and you can stack up multiple days, I believe, you don't have to do it every day, but you gain one new contract per day, and when you complete a contract, you then gain a token that you can use to raid the vault. So when you're raiding the vault as a shadow, so it's this dungeon that you go through, and enemies spawn, and your objective is to steal as much essentia, as much gold, let's say, from the vault. Every now and then, sentinels, alarms start to go off. They're monsters that are calling in calling Gondor, and not calling Gondor, whatever. Reference!
Gun knuckles for 8!
You have to kill these alarm monsters, they're called wardens, before they raise the alarm. And you can get through the entire thing, killing all the wardens before they raise the alarm, and then there's a boss to fight at the end, and if you manage to do all that, you should be able to gain or steal 100% of the contents of the vault. If, however, at any point, the alarm is raised, then what you see, what happened before will happen, the immortals are alerted, and then we can come in, and then you gotta fight us. Or you can leave. A shadow is free to leave whenever he wants. So either they can, put their tail between their legs and skip out instantly, or they can try fighting us. If they fight us and lose, or if at any point a shadow dies while raiding the vault, they gain nothing.
You get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
It is only if you successfully leave that you are able to retain what you saved, so again, it's giving players choices, which is really cool. You get to choose how risky you want to be. Do you want to risk fighting the Immortals? Do you believe in yourself enough that you're not going to die in half a second to the Immortals and make that a wasted resource run? Or are you going to, cut your losses, go big or go home, basically. Shadows also have this really cool thing where there's the Shadow Lottery, where I think it's every day at a certain time or I think it's a couple days of the week. At certain times, there's a Shadow Lottery where you can apply to join the lottery in order to gain a ticket to basically give to invite other people into the shadows. So I believe the only way to really become a shadow is to get invited into the shadows, which is this really cool social system that I didn't expect to find so engaging. It's almost like the shadows spread like a disease. So the whole shadow versus immortal thing, again, I really like the system overall. There's some little things, to fix here and there. Again, being a shadow I thought was really fun. There's even another system, actually. A lot of these systems, especially for the shadows, are PvE. Again, I'll reiterate, you, especially if you're going to be an adventurer or a shadow, don't ever have to PvP. You can stay entirely PvE. As a shadow, there's enough activities to do as just PvE that you don't have to ever fight another player. You can raid the vault and just, as soon as you raise the alarm, leave. Or just don't raise the alarm. Just be good. Just be good and you don't have to PvP. But yeah, as a shadow, there's this other activity as well that you can run as much as you want. It's similar to challenge rifts where you keep progressing through levels. Every time you beat a level, you gain some reward. There's no point in repeating levels that you've already done. It's really just about keeping progressing further and further and further. So there's all these different little progression systems in the game in different ways, different types of progression systems in different ways, which is all very great. All long-term, long-tail things to build towards. Some shorter term, some longer term, some medium term, giving you different objectives. And so this was able to keep me engaged quite a bit for quite a while. Again, after about a month of playing this, I've started to get more bored now. But again, we don't have the entire game available to us yet. A lot of the things that I want to do require more players. Again, I would probably be doing PvP every day if I could, and if it were properly balanced. But at the very least, I feel that the game gives me a solid, I want to say 3 hours of stuff to do every day before I run out of things to do and I'm more like, okay, well, what now? I guess I'll just run some rifts, or I guess I'll just, do the half-hour activity. But between all the objectives that are given to you, all the things that you can do that give you measurable progress that could only be done on a daily basis, right? Your bounties, your daily goals, your daily quests, this and that. Solid 3 hours of play per day, which I think for most people, is more than enough. So overall, I'm happy with the number of different endgame things to do in the game. I have reached, however, a point in my progression. Again, I'm Paragon 25, and my stuff is now taking very long to progress. By the way, leveling from 1 to max level is a lot slower than in Diablo 3. It's actually at a very good pace, I would say. Also, legendary drop rates, good pace as well. Legendaries don't rain from the sky, drop rates are great. They're not abysmally low like they were in Vanilla D3, where it took me 40 hours to get my first set and then it was garbage. You get them, maybe one item every couple hours or so. But I guess now we'll end by talking about the system that I dislike the most about the game. And that's the monetization model. I think the simplest way to explain this is to say that if you pay money, you will progress faster than someone who doesn't pay money. That said, the top players will still be the people who play 8 hours a day. Top players will be top players. You cannot buy your way into being a top player. I don't see any venue where that could happen. It's more between two people who invest the same amount of time into the game. The person who spends money will be a bit further ahead than the person who doesn't. So again, the people who are like the streamers who play for 8+ hours a day, they're not going to be surpassed by someone who plays 1 hour a day and spends money. It's not going to happen. What you're going to see is that between the people who play for 8 hours a day, the person, if between the two of them, one spends money and one doesn't, yeah, the one who spends money will progress a little faster. He will probably have a power advantage, which I personally don't like. That's not what I like. I would rather have there be nothing attached, that the monetization model is purely cosmetic, not attached to gameplay in any way. But let's explore further now what exactly this does. So, legendary crests. You can buy with real money, effectively, legendary crests. What do legendary crests do? As we were talking about before, every time you run a rift with a legendary crest, you are guaranteed 1 legendary gem. You need these to level up your other legendary gems, so people who spend money will be able to acquire legendary gems faster than those who do not. Reforged stones. You can buy reforged stones, so you can perfect your gear faster than someone who is not spending money. Now remember, you can reforge to turn a non-main stat into a main stat, so this does translate into a power bonus, but it is random, right? In the same way that legendary crests are randomized, reforged stones are random. You can't just like buy what you want. You're still at the mercy of RNG. But then there's platinum. So platinum is a resource that lets you do a number of different things. Part of it is the currency, I'm pretty sure is the currency of the market. But platinum is also used for other things, such as you need to spend some amount of platinum to level up your legendary gems, or to craft new legendary gems, rather. So your progression, you do gain platinum for free. You know, there are ways to gain platinum other than buying it, but you can buy platinum. And then with platinum, I'm pretty sure you can also buy whatever you want, gem-wise, off the market here. Let's try to find something for sale. The market is just dead because there's just no one using it, because we don't have a critical mass of players, but here we go. So, Black Rose, you can see these costs are in platinum. So, in theory, I can buy a whole bunch of platinum, and then I can just buy the gems that I want. Now, again, this is not the same as buying a GG endgame item, but these are all little things that will speed your progress towards becoming powerful, right? You're not gonna spend money one time in Immortal and become the most powerful dude. But if you are consistently spending money on these little things, they're all going to gradually add up to an advantage over a player who has invested a similar amount of time as you. Now, is this the worst monetization model imaginable? No. I've seen and played mobile games that are 100 to 1,000 times more predatory. Again, I don't like this system, but it could have been so much worse. And the other thing that I try to bear in mind is mobile gamers who have looked at this system seem to say this is totally fine and fair. I'm not a mobile gamer, I'm a PC gamer. We have a certain culture in PC gaming. If this were in a PC game, I would not accept this. I just wouldn't accept this in a PC game. But to some extent, I try to bear in mind, because I don't want to be like someone who walks into a foreign country, a foreigner, right, traveling abroad, and I'm going to dinner with some family, and I see they're all sitting on the floor to eat, and I say, hey, what are you doing? That's not sanitary. You shouldn't eat food off the floor. And they're like, hey, this is our culture. What are you doing? Don't attack our culture, right? So in the same way, it's like, well, I almost feel like I'm coming in here and I don't want to like tell mobile gamers, hey, you're wrong to like this. It feels weird. So I'm trying to bear that in mind, that it's a different culture. Certain things are just treated differently. I can say that it is this sort of weird culture shock where, like, to me it's like, okay, well, you're eating food off the floor. This doesn't seem right. I can give you reasons, right? I can give you actual reasons why I think this is actively bad. I can tell you why I think it's bad to eat off the floor. I can give you a list of them and why I think this is not healthy, but I'm still effectively attacking your culture in a way. So for that reason, like, I feel like I can't say, hey, definitely, like, change this system. You must do this. You must abide by my culture. But what I do know is that this will be something that will affect people's, at least it will affect the number of PC gamers, right, that will want to adopt to this culture, right? So, you know, if you know that in this country people are going to be eating off the floor and you have to eat off the floor or deal with people who are doing that, maybe you just don't want to go to that country at all. You don't want to be ingratiated into that culture. So, What I will say is having this monetization model will impact the number of PC gamers that will want to go over and play this. But as for mobile gamers, like, this seems like perfect. Like, this is like an amazing model. It's not predatory. It doesn't keep shoving in your face, buy this, buy that, buy this, buy that. It's very kind of in the background, but it is what it is. So again, all this comes together. My verdict as of now for the game not being fully complete, I had a lot of fun playing Immortal. I had weeks of fun playing Immortal. It keeps me busy. It gives you at least 3 hours of stuff to do every day. So much more in-game activities than in D3. Systems that I find so much more exciting that I wish would come not only to D3, but that are even being looked at for D4. In many ways, this feels like an evolution of Diablo 3. You take the base of Diablo 3 again, slap it on mobile, and then, we have D3 released almost a decade ago. So it's an evolution of that. However, in some ways it is, again, shallower than D3. There's a few little balancing things that need to be resolved, but hopefully these can be improved and fixed in time for release. And I think overall, one of my major surprises with Immortal was I didn't expect that it would actually be in some ways innovating or pushing the ARPG genre with certain systems. Again, like the whole overworld Immortal versus Shadow stuff, I think is so cool. I did not expect this amount of innovation to come out of mobile Diablo. I mean, at the end of the day, I've been recording this video for almost 2 hours now, meaning I've had 2 hours of stuff to talk about with this game. This is not a small game. There's a lot in this game, enough to keep me talking for 2 hours straight here. It's gonna get trimmed down in the editing, but that's gonna wrap up this video. So, thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making this video possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Riker's Raiders for more gaming content.